Welcome back, everybody. I'm kind of working on the 612 project here again. When I was back over the 4th of July, I brought back a few more parts out to North Dakota here. Just give you a quick rundown of this. I kind of showed this back in Wisconsin when I was loading up. I brought back the sulky parts. The axle for that is there. The wheels are there, so all that could get cleaned up. I brought back a few engine parts. I got the oil pan. That'll need to be taken apart. This baffle all cleaned out, blah, blah, blah. We'll get to that later. I got the oil level and filter, so that can all get gone through. I have the front cover for the engine and the fan assembly. That's going to need a lot of work. I'm not going to get into that either at this point. Some shifting and clutch linkages. We'll probably be getting to that sooner rather than later because that can go back on the differential and transmission assembly. I brought the flywheel and what clutch parts I do have. There again, I'm not going to get into that quite yet. I'll do a whole separate video when we get to the clutch because that's kind of its whole can of worms in itself. But what I do want to touch on today is the center drive clutch disc. And that fits on this worn spline shaft that we've talked many times about in the past. So I finally have the part that mates to it to see how it fits. And just as I was dreading, it has tons of play in it because those splines are worn on both the shaft and the internal splines of this driven disc. So what I'm thinking at this point is making an entirely new disc. A couple different reasons. One, to tighten up the splines, and two, and more importantly, this has been broken and repaired in the past and then it's cracked again. There's a crack here. There's a crack here. And there's one other one. There's like 3 cracks in this thing and it's been poorly welded. It's not good. I don't feel it's worth fixing at this point. And finding another original, even if I could, which is pretty much impossible, chances are the splines are going to be worn the same anyway. So it'll be in the same boat even if it wasn't broken. So what I'm thinking of doing, like I said, is making a entirely new part, taking and carefully filing down, because these are worn in the center section here where it actually rides, right? You can kind of see from about there to there it is worn more, and then of course where it's not riding on the front and on the back, it's the full 1/4 inch. So what I'm thinking of doing is carefully filing the unworn portion to match the worn portion, taking it down to that size. I'm thinking if you took about a 32nd off, you can get everything cleaned up. And then if a guy could get a appropriate sized broach that size, I think you could custom broach in these 4 splines, basically like you're doing a keyway seat, but instead you're making a spline. And like I said, I'm not a expert machinist by any means, but in my mind this should be doable because there's no reason that I know that these splines actually have to be rounded on the back side like that. I mean, they could be just a square shouldered like a keyway basically, because the splines themselves are straight vertically on the edges. And so that's my kind of tentative game plan there. I'm kind of still in the process of researching it, kind of asking around. But I think between us and a couple of machinist more inclined buddies out there, I think we can turn up an entirely new part and kind of kill two birds with one stone. Have more appropriate backlash in the spline and get away from all these broken and repaired and broken again parts. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I'll keep you updated as we figure out more there. If anybody out there has more ideas on how to do that, how to make those custom splines, I'm all ears, because I think I kind of have it figured out on how to do that. One thing I do not know is anybody have any ideas or more knowledge on is what type of steel or what material to use for this. This is a cast piece originally, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't just turn it out of a piece of steel. What type of steel exactly, I do not know, but there again, machinist friends should be able to help me with that information. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. The other goal for this weekend, what I kind of want to get done is, I think I touched on this in a previous video, but just for a quick recap, because it has been quite a while. I haven't really been working on this project. I've been sidetracked on other things this summer. Trying to get back in the swing of it here, is to make a custom spacer, washer, whatever you want to call it, shim, to take up some of the end play on this bearing assembly, belt pulley bearing assembly. So I have the shim stock here. It's 12 thou shim stock by a whole lot, so I got way more than I need, but that was the smallest amount I could find. So basically I'm going to see if I can come up with a way to get creative with, like I say, a couple of hole saws or whatever, and cut out a spacer that'll actually sit down in the bottom in between these two, and then that'll take up that end play. I'll see if it works, and if it does, I'll check back with you, and if it doesn't, well, we'll pretend we never even talked about this. So once I get that figured out, the next thing is I have the materials to make a new, this was the pin that was in there, it's completely shot, so I got some new material to make a new pin. That's easy enough. I have a reamer for that size of pin, and what I want to do is, if you remember, the original hole was all wallowed out and there's a crack in it, so I'm going to turn this around 180 and drill a hole, a ream, so it's a precision fit into the belt pulley, whatever you want to call it, shaft here, to renew all that. So I don't have to worry about that. So maybe work on that too. And then when I was back over the 4th, Swanson Machine Shop there, aka Dad, turned me up a new set of 6 bolts for the belt pulley assembly here, to bolt that onto the back of the transmission there, to replace all the original very bad, it doesn't really pick up so great on camera, but the threads are very lousy on the original bolts. And of course they're obscure size, thick-headed bolt, so I bought him a piece of appropriate sized hex stock, and he just turned me up some new ones. So thank you, Dad. Big thumbs up to you. So once we get this figured out, this could actually be put back on to here then. Kind of wrap that up. What I'm trying to do is get back in the swing of things here to get this all at least primed before winter gets here, because we're already, fall is right around the corner here. So I want to get some at least primer on all this to prevent it from rusting. It's already starting to get a couple little spots here and there from just sitting in the moisture in the atmosphere, but nothing. A quick little wire wheel won't clean up again before I prime. But yeah, that's kind of the goal. Like I said, I just haven't been getting a whole lot done with this lately because I've been just busy with the rest of the things in life. Going to a couple of auctions and working on other house projects, and summer is just so busy. Once we get to fall and winter, it seems like I got a lot more time to focus on this project and this kind of stuff. So that's where we are on this part of the project. I'll keep you updated. Here's my thought process, and I'll see if it works or not. So I got my piece of shim stock screwed to a piece of 2x. I figure I'll start with the ID, drill that through, switch out to the bigger one, use the same center point, which will be left in the 2x, drill through, and I should be left with a nice shim, maybe. I might have to, after I drill the first hole, put a couple of screws just to hold that ring from getting crazy once the second hole drills through. But I don't know, we'll give it a try here, see what happens. Well, I'm going to call that a victory. I guess it worked. It may not be the best way to do this, but given what I have to work with, it worked all right. I just got to deburr the edges here a little bit and go and actually try it on the part and see how it fits. It's not exactly, the sizes I would have liked, but given the hole sizes I had, hole saw sizes I had to work with, it's the best I had. So we'll try it. If it doesn't work, we ain't out much. We'll try something different if it's not happy with how it fits on there. I'm kind of thinking the ID might be a little sloppier than what I was hoping for, but we'll see. We'll try it. It's being about right, actually. So that's how it'll fit there. It's upside down. And that goes on. And then the housing goes on. And then that goes there. And then that takes out, it's hard to do it one-handed here, but that takes out most of the backlash. It's just that little bit like I think it should be. So I'm pretty happy with that, actually. I think we'll go with that. I deburred it all at the shop there before I came back here. So I think we'll focus now on figuring out how to drill this out. Make up a new little pin and see if we can get this all buttoned up today. Okay, so I'm all set up in the drill press here. I had put that on there, transfer punched the location. I just drilled it with an 1/8 inch drill bit to pilot drill it to the depth of the original hole. Now I'm going to switch out bits and drill it to there again, the depth of the original hole. This is one size under 13/32. And then we'll take my reamer and ream it out to the final 7/16. Ream it out to the 7/16 final size, and then it should be a nice precision fit for the pin. That's why you check things. I just about goofed. Well, it wouldn't have been a goof, I would have had to drill it again, but it was in the wrong bin. I grabbed the one size under 27/64. Like I said, it was really a 13/32. So I'm really going with the 27/64. Got the right size bit here. There, reamed out. So now all we got to do is cut ourselves a pin and test fit it all. So far things are going good. I'm actually impressed at how well this is coming together. So I got my pin cut and ends slightly chamfered. It ended up being just a very light press fit into this, which is perfect. There was a little bit of a, what do you want to call it, a little bit of a ridge. So that pin, even if it was loose, can't work its way out. It kind of bottoms out, so to speak. And it's the right depth there. And when you put it all together in the new hole, everything is a perfect snug fit. I mean, look at that. Not an ounce of wiggle. The bolts work. I already tested that. So now the next thing is to put it all together and dry fit it on here. Well, before that, I think what I'll do is possibly think about, I can't get that back on. I have to tap it back out of there. If you remember, it was a little bit sloppy on here. So think about that a little bit and see if I want to put any shims or anything to take out that little bit of backlash. But yeah, it's coming together good. I mean, I'm actually, like I said, I'm pretty impressed that for not really knowing what I'm doing or being a machinist by any means and working with arguably less than ideal equipment. You know, if you had a milling machine or whatever, you could be a lot more precision about this stuff. But for making do with what you have, you know, drill press and whatnot, this is coming out excellent. I decided to put it back on here just to see how everything fit. And I think I'm actually just going to leave well enough alone. Like we already knew, the in and out, you know, there's no discernible play there now. And the whole backlash on that square, it's not terrible either. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of play there, but you're going to have a little bit of play anyway. Of course, the Babbitt, you know, there's a little bit of up and down there, but there's nothing I can do about that short of rebabbiting the whole thing. And even then, you're going to have a little bit of play. So I think I'm going to call that good. Like I mentioned in the past, worst case scenario, if it really is bad or whatever, it's not hard at all to pull the belt pulley assembly back off and redo it down the road. It's not like I got to tear apart the whole tractor or anything. It's just those 6 bolts and it comes right off. So got one of Dad's new bolts in there, works good. No lock washer behind it. It was just threw one in there, just a temporary try it. But yeah, I'm calling that part of it good. So we're getting really close to having this assembly ready for primer. Once I nail down exactly what type of paint and primer I'm going to use on this thing, I got to get that ordered up here so I can get that done while the weather still holds out. Get at least primed before winter. So I actually sent off, I don't think I mentioned this yet, these pinion parts that we talked about way back. I sent them off to my buddy Kyle, and he's going to work on getting them modeled up and, you know, to figure out how to machine them all up for me in the near future here. So hopefully within the next month or two, those will be ready to go. So that'll be really good to get that part of the project done. But yeah, coming right along, slowly but surely. Start working on this here again. And I got all the hardware, the original lock washers for the belt pulley assembly cleaned up, well, except for that one. I think that one's at home, so I'll have to grab that tomorrow. But I think I'm going to call it a day here. That's a pretty good progress for the day. Maybe we'll check back tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Happy Sunday. Yeah, I've been out here for a few hours this evening, working on clutch throwout levers, I guess you'd call it, and shifting lever linkages and whatnot, rods. Get them all cleaned up here. It's just about time to quit and go make supper, but I figure I'm going to try to at least get these all kind of dry fit together on the tractor and see how everything works. And I'll have to come up with a new spring. And I got to figure out what this is for. I got an extra washer. I'm not sure where it goes. So maybe when I'm putting it together, it'll fall into place. But other than that, let's see if we can put this together. Well, that's good enough for one day. I'm going to call her a day, but I figure I'll show you what I got done here. So this linkage goes in here. This controls your clutch as well as your brake band. This would go, let's see if we can see in there, in the end of that, like that, with the little cross pin, but I ain't going to put that together quite yet because it's all going to have to come apart anyway. I got the right oversized nut back on there, so the little keeper will work better now. I got, like I said, this shaft. I'll have to figure out spring, because if I remember right, that goes in there with the, I think it went like the washer behind it. I don't exactly remember what kind of pin was in here, but I don't have it with me. It must be back in Wisconsin yet. But basically the linkage acted upon that, if I remember right. Yeah, that arm, I'm trying to go from memory here, but I think that arm comes in like that. And there's a pin through it that makes this shaft go back and forth. So pushing forward on it would throw out clutch yoke there, and that would disengage your clutch. It'll all make more sense once we get the clutch, once we get to that, and I'll show you how that all works. But like I said, that's a whole can of worms for a different day. And then once you get all the way to the end of the stroke, this shaft needs a little work yet too. It's a little stiff in that bore. Even though it's cleaned up, it sticks. To do a little more fine tuning, hone it out a little bit. But all the way pulls upon that brake band then, and engages the brake on the differential drum there. And then there should be another rod in here, which I am missing. I must have left that in Wisconsin too. So next time I'm home, or next time Dad comes out, I'll probably have him bring that out. And then that comes here with some type of a pin. And then this is your shifting linkage. So the lever here moves that shaft, which moves this arm, which moves your shifting rod to engage in forward, reverse, or neutral. So, and then there's a pin there that I'm also missing. So I didn't quite bring all the parts back that I needed here. But we're making progress. I got a bolt. Bolts these two together so you can take this apart, so you can take your clutch out without having to take the whole shaft apart. There's little holes here so you can get in there from there's an access on the side of the main casting. There's a door on each side. One side's a toolbox, the other side's an access hole to get in here to adjust your clutch and to put a little bit of oil in there every once in a while to keep these pivoting freely. So yeah, that's kind of what we're at for now. Like I said, I think I'm going to call it a day. It's about time to go home and make supper, and I think we'll call it a week here. So I'll put a video together of my progress for this weekend, and like I said, I'll try to get back on this project and make a little more regular updates, since I've been kind of lacking on that here lately. So yeah, thanks for watching, and maybe see you next week.